60 million households, 9,000 stores across 9 countries, $4 billion in annual revenue. In 2004, Blockbuster was, by every measurable metric, the most dominant home entertainment company on the planet. 6 years later, the company filed for bankruptcy. 24,000 employees lost their jobs. The final store, in Bend, Oregon, became a tourist attraction. But here is what most people do not know. Blockbuster was offered the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million and said no. And then, 4 years later, when the company had finally built something that was actually beating Netflix, its own CEO was fired by shareholders for spending too much money on innovation. This is the Blockbuster Netflix history story. And it is not a story about being too slow. It is a story about being stopped, twice, at exactly the right moment. To understand what happened to Blockbuster, you need to understand what Blockbuster actually was. Founded in 1985 in Dallas, Texas, by David Cook, a data processing entrepreneur, Blockbuster was not, at its core, a movie company. It was a logistics and inventory operation. Cook had built software for the oil industry. He applied the same data-driven thinking to video rental, track titles, analyze demand, optimize stock per location. It was methodical, systematic, and extraordinarily effective. By 1994, there was a Blockbuster store within a 10-minute drive of 60% of the American population. The company had been acquired by media giant Viacom for over $8 billion, the largest media acquisition of its era. Wayne Huizenga, who had already built Waste Management and AutoNation from scratch, had taken Blockbuster from one store to over 3,000 in under a decade. The business model was simple and brutal. Customers paid a rental fee. If they returned the tape late, they paid a late fee. Late fees, by the late 1990s, generated close to $800 million per year, roughly 16% of total revenues. Customers hated late fees. Blockbuster knew this and continued charging them anyway. In 1997, in Scotts Valley, California, Reed Hastings returned a copy of Apollo 13 to his local video store. The late fee was $40. He was embarrassed and angry. That experience, which Hastings has recounted in multiple interviews, became the founding myth of Netflix. By 2000, Blockbuster employed 60,000 people. Its stores occupied over 10 million square feet of real estate across the United States. The company had negotiated revenue-sharing deals with every major Hollywood studio. It received tapes at lower cost in exchange for a percentage of rental revenues. This gave Blockbuster pricing power that no independent video store could match. It was, in the language of business strategy, a structural moat. In 2000, John Antioco became CEO. He was, by any objective measure, a turnaround specialist of significant skill. He had previously rescued Circle K and Taco Bell from financial distress. He understood retail, he understood consumer psychology, and he understood the threat that a small DVD by mail startup called Netflix posed, better, it turns out, than his own board of directors did. Netflix, at this point, was a curiosity. Founded in 1997, it had pivoted to a subscription model in 1999. No late fees, unlimited rentals, flat monthly rate. By 2002, it had around 200,000 subscribers. Against Blockbuster's 60 million active customer accounts, it was commercially invisible. The press described it as a niche service for people who did not mind waiting 3 days for a movie. In 2000, Netflix approached Blockbuster with a proposal. Reed Hastings and co-founder Mark Randolph flew to Dallas and presented the following offer. Blockbuster would acquire Netflix, its subscriber base, its technology, its brand, for $50 million. Netflix would become Blockbuster's online division. Hastings would run it. Blockbuster's executives laughed them out of the room. According to Mark Randolph's memoir, published in 2019, Blockbuster's response was direct. The numbers did not justify the price, and DVD by mail was a niche product with no meaningful future. $50 million for a company losing money? The answer was no. Between 2000 and 2003, Netflix grew from 200,000 to 1 million subscribers. Its losses narrowed, its logistics improved, and in 2004, it became profitable for the first time. Meanwhile, Blockbuster's late fee revenues, that $800 million line item, were beginning to generate the kind of reputational damage that does not show up immediately in financial statements. John Antioco saw all of this clearly. In 2004, he launched Blockbuster Online, a direct Netflix competitor, same subscription model, no late fees, same red envelope DVD delivery. He also convinced the board to eliminate in-store late fees entirely, a direct response to Netflix's core value proposition. The program cost approximately $400 million in lost revenue in its first year, but it worked. By 2006, Blockbuster Online had reached 2 million subscribers and was, according to internal documents cited in the Harvard Business Review, closing the gap with Netflix faster than any analyst had projected. In 2005, Carl Icahn acquired a significant stake in Blockbuster. Icahn, the activist investor whose interventions at TWA, Motorola, and Apple had made him one of the most feared shareholders in American corporate history, had a specific thesis. Blockbuster was spending too much money on innovation and not enough on returning cash to investors. Icahn's primary target was the $400 million cost of eliminating late fees. To Icahn, this was not innovation. It was value destruction. He began aggressively recruiting board members aligned with his position. By 2006, 3 of Blockbuster's 9 board seats were held by Icahn-backed directors. On May the 11th, 2007, at Blockbuster's annual shareholder meeting in Dallas, a resolution was called to remove John Antioco as chief executive officer. Icahn's faction voted in favor. After a negotiation that extended through the summer, Antioco resigned in July 2007 with a severance package that Icahn publicly contested as excessive. His replacement was Jim Keyes, a former 7-Eleven CEO with no experience in digital media or subscription services. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal shortly after his appointment, Keyes stated, and this is a direct quote from the public record, that he did not see Netflix as a threat, that Blockbuster's physical stores were its competitive advantage, and that digital was a long-term consideration rather than an immediate priority. Keyes dismantled Blockbuster Online. He redirected capital back to the physical store network. He reintroduced late fees in certain markets. Within 12 months of his appointment, Netflix had surpassed Blockbuster Online in subscriber count. Within 24 months, Netflix was profitable and growing at 40% per year. Blockbuster was negotiating covenant waivers with its lenders. On September the 23rd, 2010, Blockbuster Inc. filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the Southern District of New York. The filing listed approximately $900 million in assets and over $1 billion in liabilities. The company had, in the preceding 3 years, closed more than 3,000 stores. 24,000 jobs had been eliminated. The stock, which had traded at over $30 per share in 2003, was valued at pennies. In 2011, Dish Network acquired Blockbuster's remaining assets, brand, customer data, and the final 400 or so stores, for $170 million. Viacom had originally paid over $8 billion for the same company 17 years earlier. The destruction of shareholder value, measured from peak market capitalization in 1996 to liquidation in 2011, exceeded $5 billion. As of April 2026, One Blockbuster store remains open in Bend, Oregon, operated by Sandy Harding, who has run it since 2008. It has become a cultural landmark. People drive hours to visit it. It has its own merchandise line and more Instagram followers than most active retail chains. Reed Hastings visited it in 2019. He reportedly browsed the shelves for 20 minutes. He did not rent anything. The standard version of the Blockbuster story is a story about technological disruption, about a slow, arrogant company that failed to see the future coming. That version is wrong, or at least incomplete. Blockbuster did see the future coming. John Antioco built the response. It was working. The company was, in 2006 and 2007, executing a credible transition to digital subscription services at a scale Netflix could not yet match. The problem was not vision. The problem was governance. Carl Icahn was not wrong that Blockbuster was spending aggressively. He was wrong about what that spending was buying. The $400 million in late fee revenue that Antioco sacrificed was not waste. It was the price of competitive repositioning in a market undergoing fundamental change. Short-term financial logic won over long-term strategic logic, and a publicly traded company's governance structure, the mechanism by which shareholders control management, made that outcome not just possible, but predictable. The question worth sitting with is this: if Blockbuster's shareholders had voted differently on that May morning in 2007, if Antioco had been given another 18 months, would we live in a different world? Would Netflix exist as we know it? Would streaming look the same? There is no definitive answer, but the fact that the question is even worth asking, that is what makes this story something other than a simple cautionary tale. If you want to go deeper, the sources for every claim in this video are listed in the description below. And if you have a view on what the right answer is, the comments are open.